Well, good afternoon, or I guess it's getting close to evening at this time of the year. This is Mike Killalay, and I am so very pleased to introduce Lana Privitera, uh, a spectacular painter who perhaps we should have encouraged people to get their teacups out and have a cup of tea during this, because she just does some exquisite work, a lot of teacups, but all kinds of things. She's an award-winning artist. She's got a pile of awards. She teaches, and I'm just really pleased to have her with us tonight. So, Lana, if you want to go ahead, go get them.
Thank you so much. I never know what to say the first couple sentences, but anyway, I wanted to thank you for inviting me to this group to do this demo. I hope I fulfilled your expectations. You'll see that I talk a lot. Okay, once I get going, it's hard to stop me. Meaning, I like to share all my tricks and tips, and you probably will hear what you want to hear at one point. So yes, like our friend here was saying, is a wait, we'll have some breaks now and then where I'll actually ask you if you have any questions. But I'll start talking about, I have basically like a little list, how we are all with lists. I have my little points I want to talk about, and probably with those points, I will answer already some of your questions. But anytime that you want something pops in your head, just exactly write it in the chat, and then we'll be able to answer those questions later. But anyway, I think we are all set to start, okay? Now, I don't know if any of you have actually seen my paintings. You might have seen just the paintings that I do now in the last, let's say, since 2015, when I returned to painting watercolors. I used to be a watercolorist years ago in New Jersey, and I painted different kinds of artwork. I did all kind of different things, pen and inks, pastels, portraits, I did everything. But then I focused more on watercolor, and I did all kind of things, but always in a realistic style. So I was wondering how many of you are realistic and how many of you in your group are kind of the loose kind, because we are all watercolorists, but we are all different. Also, regarding subjects, I'm sure you guys have people who focus on figure, people that focus on still lifes, and others in landscapes. So I'm going to show you just briefly what I used to do and how I transitioned to what I do today. The point of this is to encourage people who is starting to paint now. We were discussing before you guys join in, that it is a lot of new people that are old people joining, starting to paint now. So I usually try to help that kind of people that are retaking art again. After 30 years not painting, they're starting to paint again, or they're starting now after they retire. So I'm going to show you a couple of things of what I used to do in the old days. And you're gonna see that I haven't changed that much. It's simply that is a different subject, okay? I have everything organized in here. Okay, so in the old days in New Jersey, I used to do a lot of buildings everywhere. And I was, I saw beautifully everything. As you can see, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm painting realistic and painting detail because it's what I like, okay? But, you kind of develop through the years, you change, and you eventually get to be either better, or you change to a different style that fits better your personality, okay? So this is what I used to do from 1995 to the year 2002. After that, I actually stopped painting because my eyes were getting kind of out of whack. And I married and moved to New York. So, and I had a child, so I didn't paint for 10 years. But in between those years, I did paint a few things from Spain. I was still doing architectonic subjects. And you can see that I was not completely realistic. I'm loose sometimes. It's not like I'm very, very tight. It's just that I don't know about you, but I found that many, many Americans admire realism. So I found my niche, why to change something that's working for me. So I continue in the same trend, and I did well with that. Then also through all these years, I did a lot of pet portraits, people's portraits, and all kind of mediums. But that was something that I did already. When I returned to painting in 2015, I started with what I used to know how to paint. They say, for example, to writers, they tell you, write about what you know. In this case, I always advise painters or people who want to start painting more often, say, paint what you like and what you are familiar with. Same thing. If you admire architectonic subjects, try to learn to draw, try to learn perspective, and prepare yourself to paint that kind of subject, if that's what's going to help you. So yeah, a little bit of everything. Of course, you might think, oh, wow, you can draw then. Yes, I used to. That was my specialty. Since I was very little, I could draw very well. So it was no problem for me to draw. All these are freehand drawn, okay? So then when I've been teaching through the years, I got people who were not good at drawing. So I've been telling people, do not worry too much about it. If you are trying to paint realistic watercolors or realistic something, I know for a fact that 80% or more of those realistic painters, at least in watercolor, pastels, and other things like this, they actually trace their drawings. So it's not a sin. People are doing it to save time. Do I do it? No, because it doesn't save me time. I'm probably faster doing it on my own. So anyway, so I also did a lot of landscape. Here we go again. With landscape, you have to choose your subjects carefully. Now, why am I saying all this? Why am I showing you all my paintings? It's because most people complain to me, I just don't know what to paint, Lana. And I say, don't worry. You take, let's say, you cannot paint outdoors. I can paint plein air because I have problems with my eyes. So I have to rely on photos. How I developed my style, how did I develop from one subject to the other, is because I took thousands upon thousands of photos. The more photos you take, the better you become at composition. For each one of my subjects, I might take, I'm not exaggerating, usually when I do my still lifes, I go to the room, I used to do my son's room, and I usually spend 2 hours until the sun passes through the window, it disappears. For 2 hours, I take photos and more photos and more photos with the same or different subject or the same objects, and every possible angle and view with the sun. As the sun changes, the shadows are changing. Then later, all those photos, I go to the computer, and out of 250, that's the magic number. Don't ask me why. It's usually 250 or 252. It's like I have a magic antenna in my head that I know exactly when to stop. Usually, I only save 4 or 5. That's it. The rest are just basically little versions of the same. So for people who are trying to develop a style, or people that are trying to find their perfect subject, I recommend that they just take tons of photos to find the best compositions. What wins competitions are not just the skill, it's also the composition. It's the most important thing. These are okay paintings, are nothing very special, but you can, it's just a pleasing to the eye composition is very important. I do not do it, basically I don't plan the composition to be, okay, 80% of this, and let's do big shapes and small shapes, all this balance. I don't even think about it. It's intuitive. It just, I know that it looks good. So when I see a photo that I have taken that looks good, I say, oh, that looks already like a painting. So that's the painting I'm going to paint. But anyway, as you can see, different styles too. You know, my still lifes are very colorful and very, vivid colors. But see, I can also paint other things that might appeal more to you. So experiment. Don't stay with just one style. You might be able to find another style that is better for you. So do not stay put always in the same spot, doing the same things again and again. When I started in 2015, I went the transition from landscape and buildings to still lifes. I didn't know if I was going to do it right, but here we go. I started with very simple setups. 1, 2 objects, trying to find nice, good negative spaces. For example, this wasn't there, so I invented to make that more interesting. So it's a matter of working your way into more complicated things. Now, what am I saying that? When I started winning awards already with my buildings, but when I came back in 2015 and I started winning awards, why I started winning awards? Because I observed other people's paintings. I observed who were the winners in each competition. And I tried to figure out why the judge found the painting interesting. And I noticed composition. It was the major thing. They were paintings that were beautifully, very skillful, wonderful, but the composition was just okay, nothing much. And those didn't win as many awards. So I've been working to get my paintings more and more complex in composition. This is nothing special. I did this once. For example, I personally find that there's too much empty space here. Okay, so I can critique my own paintings. Why did I put this smoke here? To fill up this space, but I can do that here too. It will be repetitive, boring. So this is a nice painting, and it did win an award in the Netherlands. No, it didn't win an award in the Netherlands, sorry. It just has been in one show. It might win an award for skills, for being a pretty painting, being well done, but composition-wise, it's nothing special, okay? For that, you have to go already to worry more about all the negative spaces and everything that's there. Okay, let me see what else. I want to show you. Ooh, I forgot to unplug it. 1 second.
The stage is empty.
I'm back. Okay. 1 second. Okay. So we talked already about finding your subjects, find your composition, and I'm going to show you now the first painting that actually won a top award for me was this one. Let me see. This one. This one. Okay. So now, this painting is a single object, but it does have 3 different, you know how they say, don't put just 2 objects in a painting, use always uneven numbers. To me, background is number 1, the picture is number 2, the tablecloth is number 3, okay? So when they say, don't put a single element here, well, if it's also interested in the rest of the painting, having one single object, it's okay, okay? So to me, this actually, the title of this painting is the Spanish tablecloth, okay, more than the picture. Because to me, the one that really seems to catch the eye is the tablecloth, which takes me to another point here, is how important titles are for a painting. I believe if I had said this was the blue and white picture, the judge would have said, okay, yeah, nice, pretty. But when I said the Spanish tablecloth, his eyes went automatically to observe the tablecloth and all the pleats and all the colors in the tablecloth. So your titles will help you to direct the judge to your painting, and probably will help the judge to see things that otherwise he would not have even looked at. He might take a second look at the painting. That's why I usually actually, yes, you can put the scripted titles in your paintings, but then I also recommend that you make them a little bit witty. Don't overdo it, but a little bit interesting. I don't have here, let me see, oh, I didn't put it here, but I have a painting that is pretty important that is all over the internet. That painting has become, sorry, I don't know, this painting. So this painting, the name of this painting is actually Lessons Not Learned. And the original, so if I could see bigger, okay. This vase is cracked. The objects are at the edge of the table. Automatically, when I paint a subject with shapes like this, I think of humans. I give them human attributes, meaning I'm thinking this as a group of friends that are at the edge of a cliff, and they're right at the edge. I have some marbles, they're right falling off, literally. These ones are almost to fall. This one is standing back a little, like I say, ooh, I don't want to fall again, but still. So I call it Lessons Not Learned, because they are, about to make the same mistake again and fall off the table. So that makes a judge say, Lessons Not Learned. Why is she calling that name? Make them look again and try to guess. So you're keeping the judge attention on your painting for a longer period of time. Okay. So this now, why is showing you this? Now we're changing to a different subject, and we're going to see the progression sequence. Yeah. Okay. 1 second. Now, most people, okay, any questions related to anything I just talked about?
No, okay. Good thoughts.
If you have a question, have a question, then unmute yourself. I think we're good so far.
Okay. So now what happens is I see that most people wonder how I paint, or what's my process, right? What comes first, the idea, the photo, what is it? I personally, I don't know about you, I personally actually, I might have the idea when I'm cooking dinner, when I'm doing the dishes, when I'm going into the room to put clothes in the closet. If I see sun coming through, hitting an object, automatically sparks an idea, right? But I'm always very, very careful. Let me put it on the table so that looks very empty. What happens is, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Okay, when I start thinking of a painting, I might do a little sketch. Yes, yes and no. I usually rely on my photos. That's what I was going to do. What I do is I have, like I said, I take 250 photos. I end up with 4 or 5. Of those 4 or 5, I actually choose the ones that have the best colors. So let's say, for example, I'm painting this now, right now. I have a photo with the blue dish. I have a photo with the red dish. Okay. They were taken at different times of the day, so some are darker than others. Another different dish photo, a different light to in a couple of spots. So the tablecloth looks different, probably. See? So I take many, many, many photos. Finally, when I'm ready for it, then I will draw the drawing a full size on a sketch paper. And then I will transfer it using the light box. I'll transfer that to my watercolor paper. Do I do my large paintings in 140 or 300? I've been playing with both. I like better 140 if I don't have to put many, many, many layers. But if my painting is going to be very dark with many, many darks, and I'm going to use many, many layers, then I use 300 pounds. Unfortunately, what happens with 300 pounds is that it seems to suck the paint like crazy. And you end up putting more layers than you actually wanted. But at least you don't get the shinies. You know what I mean with the shinies, right? When you try to do a dark background or a dark area, and when you look like this, shines, it's like shiny. You say, ah. Well, at least with the 300 pounds, doesn't usually happen, usually. There are tricks to avoid that. But when I, sorry, keep losing my train of thought. Why was doing this now? Oh yeah, this thing. Okay, so sorry, I just keep losing my train of thought today. I guess I didn't sleep last night much. Okay. Okay, yes, what happens is I do actually look at every single detail. I make whole lists of the changes I want on my painting before I even start doing the drawing. Eventually do that sketch, I do the drawing, and usually after I trace it, I still correct a few things. Why? Because if you rush a painting, usually you don't have time to process and think about it. If you let it go slowly through days and weeks, more ideas might pop in your head. Like those marbles on that painting, those marbles that were about to fall off, those were an afterthought. Those were painted at the end because I felt the painting was too static. It was like right in the middle. It was too symmetric. So I decided that I needed to add something to it. So yes, but once I start painting, what do I do? That's the number 3 question, is how do I proceed? Some people, you know, that they start painting first with the in one corner and they work their way down to the other corner. I don't. I paint in layers. You're gonna see this now in a second. I have so many examples. I start with pale layers everywhere, and then I increase the values as I go. Why do I do that? Let's say that this bush, I started with very strong colors from the beginning, and then I realized that the shape looks like a dinosaur, which it does. I used to call it, looks like a dinosaur. So if I start with very dark colors and very staining colors, I will not be able to correct it, right? So I always start with pale layers first to place my shapes so I can correct them if needed or change the color. Because sometimes when I'm doing other objects, say, you know what? Those flowers would be better if they were yellow. Oh no, they would be better if they were red. So just in case, I start with the yellow, and then later I can actually change them to slightly orange or pinky or red, or I can do them, you know, blue hydrangeas, whatever. So this is my process, is I build up slowly all over the painting. Okay, let me show you the one with the tablecloth. That's the important one. Okay, so now, yeah, this one. So that famous tablecloth, see? Do I paint the background first? Yes, usually I do. Why? Because to me, it's the messiest part of the painting. If I have a very clear idea from the beginning, I like to paint it first, because I know, as you can see in this painting here, I am very, very careful about masking my paintings. Why? Because I teach a lot, and I have seen my poor students drip paint down into their paintings on the bottom area. So I always recommend to cover this area so you don't have to worry about it. So you can be free with your strokes, so you don't get puddles with the strange shapes, you don't get blooms. If you have it covered like this, you can take your time to get your brush strokes, okay? So that's why I always do the background first, okay? First layer, I keep adding more colors. As I go with that, I can start, you know, well, of course, that's masking fluid on those little dots. It has masking fluid. obviously. Look how the jar here, this one, it starts with a warm color to start with, and then I start adding some of the purples on top to get the values that I want. I keep adding more values. Okay, these guys here on the bottom two, they start getting more values there too. So little by little, I build it little by little. Okay, so once the all my ceramics, whenever I do teacups or vases or whatever, I first do all the shadows, the three-dimensional shadows, I call them. Then I finish by doing all the decoration on top. And a good trick here, if you're not very skilled yet to do this kind of vases and things like this, guess what? The more decoration you have, the easier is to disguise the mistakes on the first layers. So if you had some little blooms and little, don't worry, blooms will be fine. You just paint the things on top and they won't even show, okay? So this painting, for example, can I correct things after I'm done? Yes, I can. Let's say, oh, I forgot it was a row of this or that there. I can always trim off with a little dark around. So you can change things after you're almost done. You can add things or you can scrub things. There were things that were, for example, it was not highlight on top of the area. But when I finished the painting, I thought it needs a highlight. So I scrubbed a little highlight over there. I guess I kept adding things as I progressed. I kept adding things that I didn't see on my photo, okay? My original photo is much, much more neutral and boring. I'm gonna show you in a second. That's the original photo. And that is my painting. As you can see, I changed it quite a bit, okay? You don't have to be a slave of your photos. Be brave, plan it, but be brave and try to do something that is slightly more happy. I call them happy paintings. Why life is unpleasant enough. I try to make people happy with my paintings. So happy colors help a lot. Okay, so now, anything else for that? I know you guys want to see me painting, but let me see, masking now. This is, I just wanted to show you this. My guys are coming from now. Okay, so here we go. Imagine painting this background with no masking. It will be impossible. Why? Because, see, I even have shine. I've been moving around so much that actually it gets a little shiny. This, remember that I was talking about the shinies? It's because it's been rubbed in and off, from, being like this with other paintings. This is just not finished. This is just from a demo. So eventually, if you do not take care of your paintings and cover them with paper, they're going to start rubbing with each other and you're going to get these shines in there, okay? Anyway, but can you imagine this painting if I had no mask, all that? It would have been impossible to have a smooth background, totally impossible. This one would have been easier, but it's still, look at this color here. Lighter here, more purple there, more purple. How do I do that? With many different layers. If I have to worry about the edges, I never will get done. So it needs to be done. Now, any of you have ever done masking like this with the covering and with tape and masking fluid? I found out that some of the masking fluids are lifting the fibers of the paper quite a bit. So sometimes there's a line that appears here. I don't like this system too much, but it's the one that works better for me. You know that other artists use the, what is that? Oh, where did it go? This. They use tape. They use this kind of tape and then they cut the outline. It's just that I don't know about you, but I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. I'm going to cut the paper through. I'm afraid that I'm going to not have a perfect shape. So to me, this seems to work better. Okay. The other thing is masking fluids that I use the PVO one, and I use the Winsor Newton. Which one I like best? It depends. In the past, I've had problems with this one, with PVO, because I was using extra white paper, 2 different brands. Okay, I used it was the Arches Extra White, which happened to be defective, and Fabriano Extra White. You know, I bought one of those packs where you can test the papers from Cheap Joe's. And this on the extra white seemed to leave a little hint of blue. And I didn't like it for that. But on my regular and paper that's not damaged, paper that is not defective, paper that is like regular natural color is wonderful. I like it because it peels easily. That doesn't seem to sink in as much, doesn't seem to disturb the fibers of the paper as much as this one. Okay, but it still is pretty safe, and that's usually the one I use most of the time. This time I use this one because I want to make sure you guys could see that. Okay, now I could actually start painting in this one, the first layer, so you get to see how many layers I put in the background and how do I choose if it's going to be a cool background or a warm background. That depends on the painting. That's what I was trying to show you here, is each one of these has a different color background. That one takes much longer to do than a regular one. If I want just a flat color, I do 4 or 5 layers of different colors, but this one I have to pay attention to the intensity of the colors. I have to get the paper wet in each layer so I can drop the colors and let them flow. But when I do a flat one, then I don't have to worry. I just paint, you know, with no changes of values, and it's much easier. Obviously, I have other times, this is not finished. This is also for a demo that didn't get finished. I can do this kind of interesting background first. Easy enough. Same thing here. It depends on what values you want. If you want a cool one or you want a warmer one. This is also part of our demo too. So there's many ways of doing these backgrounds. This one too, you can see, I mean, it went with the subject. It's obviously not finished. You still have masking fluid there. But I try to either match the subject or use complementary colors so the objects up front stand out. Okay. There we go. This one, we're going to be painting this one later, and this one too. Okay, next step. This one, I'm going to show you how I paint usually a small size like this one. And the big one will be the same, only that my brush will be a little bit bigger. This is the brush I use to paint my backgrounds. It's black goat hair. It's Da Vinci, but any brush that is natural hair, flat, of about 1 inch or 1.5 inches will do the trick for something like this. I heard, well, I actually saw a demo where Lauren McCracken, he actually scrambles the paint into the background. He has his black McCracken black, and he does scramble the paint like this to get it so he doesn't get shines. I prefer to use a lot of liquid and just have my little strokes in there and do it in different layers. Now, this is my usual palette, but obviously that will not be enough to mix the colors I need. So what I do is I have these containers from the dollar store. You buy 3 of them for $1, and you can mix your colors and keep them later if you have leftovers, and you're going to be painting a series of paintings with dark backgrounds, you can keep and use them. Okay, that's what I do. Usually when I finally have time to paint what I want to paint, I try to free my schedule so I can paint 3 or 4 backgrounds of 3 or 4 paintings at the same time. Then later I'll work on the paintings when I have time again. But at least if I'm gonna make a mess of my table with my dark colors, I can as well paint 2 or 3 of them. So I usually have 3 or 4 different paintings already drawn and ready to start. So let's say this is one of them. So usually the colors I use are staining transparent colors. Okay, now, the colors I usually use, the color combination is just my, sorry, my brain is not working today. Quinacridone rose, phthalo green, that gives you a nice and neutral color, right? Sometimes it has more bias towards pink, sometimes more bias towards greenish, but as long as it's more or less neutralized, that's all we want. With more layers, we're going to turn in more pink or more green. By overlapping 3 or 4 of those layers, you end up with a very interesting transparent, it's instead of opaque, it will be an interesting dark color. All the phthalo greens, they're not created equal. I've been testing paints for a long time, and I see that, for example, the Windsor green, all this I'm talking about is the blue, what do you call it? The blue thing. The blue shade. Like, for example, the Windsor green lifts easier. Da Vinci phthalo green, it was wonderful. I used it for what, 20 years? They have changed the formula. So now it granulates, does weird things like a brownish granulation, terrible. So I still have 1 tube that seems to work, but my students in my recent workshop bought it and it was horrible. So I don't recommend it ever again, no way. So my choice then was the M-gram phthalo green was okay too, but the Daniel Smith is very permanent and very nice. The only problem with it is that it's so transparent that you have to put more layers because it's so transparent. Okay. Same thing with the pinks. Here we go again. I tested today just to confirm what I did one time is people say, oh, well, if you're going to use permanent rose, why don't you use, just to make it darker already, why don't you use permanent magenta? Because permanent magenta somehow moves more than the permanent rose. The permanent rose sinks in and usually doesn't lift as much when I put other layers on top. But I tested today, the permanent the magenta, the quinacridone magenta, and when I put the phthalo green on top, guess what? It got, see? It kind of disturbed the paint underneath. So it's not helping me. I use the phthalo magenta, not phthalo, the quinacridone magenta, yes, for flowers, for these flowers. I use it, yes, for things like this. But for my backgrounds, nope. For my backgrounds, I want a color that's going to stay put and is not going to smear, okay? So now, how do I paint this? The big brush. Do I have other brushes that are similar? Well, this won't work for me. This is a synthetic one. It's a good one. It's a Skoda, but it's synthetic, which means that you're going to end up, if you use a synthetic one instead of a natural hair one, you probably are going to end up with lines. which is fine. For this painting, it might look nice. I have paintings where I did it purposely, I like that. Let's see where I put it. I put another sample painting here for you to see. If you want that effect, it's fine. But if you don't, see here, I purposely did it with a synthetic brush because I wanted that kind of, it looks almost like pleats from a cloth behind it. So yes, that was fantastic. It worked for me. But if I want a smooth wash, see here, I still have those lines, which I wanted. That's why I move it always in one direction. But it's not so obvious. It's still interesting, but not so obvious. Okay. So now, then I have to decide, do I want this to have stripes or do I want it to be just smooth? Well, then I have to decide, do I want to put water down first or do I dare to paint directly on dry paper? What's going to be best? Usually, I recommend that you put, or at least for the first layer, that you put water down first and then you kind of work your color into it. Because if your paper is very dry, let's say it's winter time and you have the heat on, or it's summertime and you have the air conditioner, the paper is going to be so dry that it's going to suck the paint like crazy and you are going to end up with lines. If you are not fast enough or you use the wrong brush, you're going to end up with streaks, vertical streaks. So it's up to you, depends what paper you have, how comfortable you feel. You can use either brush and you can use either water first or just paint directly on dry paper. Now, how much paint do I use? I mixed it this morning because I was doing another project, but I'm going to put more water because I want to make sure I have plenty of paint. Right now it's all condensed. 1 second. By the way, even though I save paint in these containers, I only save it for 1 week or so. And then after that, I throw it away because I worry about mold and things like that. So I never mix large quantities unless I know I'm going to use it within a week. Let's see, let's make more. Okay, now, since I might use this for 2 layers, I want to make sure I have plenty to cover this twice, okay? So, oops. I guess this is not working anymore. It's getting old. Must have a hole or something. Okay, so I see that it's still not mixing well because it's been sitting there all morning and I see little bits and pieces. Okay, there we go. Testing. This is pink because I was painting it yesterday for, I was doing a video. And unfortunately, I didn't record that section. I painted, oh no, it didn't record. So I just blot off all the color and just stay like this. So I'm gonna use this one for this demo because of that. Okay, so do I have enough in there? Is that sluggish enough? Okay, how do I know how much, how dark it needs to be? Okay, so let's say this is a good value. More than value, I'm concerned about thickness of the paint. If I put too thick paint now, later, I'm gonna have to dry it very well and spend, at least half an hour before I can put the second layer. Why? Because think about it. When you put very transparent paint, it sinks right to the bottom and it's very hard to lift. You know it. With the pink, you can play around. It sinks and that's it. But when you put it thick enough, some of it remains on the surface of the paper, which is very easy to disturb later. So we don't want that, right? So we don't want it too thick. Is that going to be thin enough? I would say yes. Consistency is, I'm gonna show you how much of the consistency. Okay, look at this. See how it's dripping down? That's what I want. If it doesn't drip, that means it's too thick, okay? So that's a good consistency. Now, I move my board in every direction when I paint to make things easy for me. I'm going to be tipping the board towards me to let the paint run into each other. Now, we're going to have problems with paint accumulating here, paint accumulating here, paint accumulating here, because we're dripping it in that direction. So what I do is I always have already prepared, these are Viva paper towels. I have them already cut in small squares. So it's easy for me to dunk the tip on the puddles, to absorb the puddle without touching. I don't want to use my brush. I don't want to suck too much. When you put the tip right on the puddle, that sucks enough of the liquid that it gets rid of the possibility of blooms later. So I have everything I need with me. Let me see. Okay, let's check. I have one brush is usually for greens and blues. See how the handle is dark. And one is for the pinks. That tells me that even if I wash well, sometimes it still leaches color. So this is the pink one. And I have also a bucket for the dirty water and one for clean water. So for this, I could stand up, or I could sit down. I actually stand. Okay, let's see. For blotter, I also use the same kind of paper towel. Or I use the paper towels, no, the napkins they give you at the Chinese restaurants. They're very nice and thick. I cut them, I use them. Oh, they're wonderful. So those are perfect. So this one, I don't want to get my nice mat. See, this mat helps to enhance the colors on the video. That's why I have this mat on. Okay. It's sucking up the paint, but it has not sucked all of it. If you have this problem, so let's say that you put your brush in there and say, oh, I got all the paint already. That means you are going to need more paint before you start painting. But I still have plenty left over, so I'm good. I'm all good. Now, tipping my board, starting this way. Oh, I didn't get it wet. Oh well, too late. Okay, so now you're gonna see how it accumulates in that section. Okay, I might insist twice in the same area just in case, but I try not to rub too much. I'm tipping that even more now. Okay, I'm going to keep down a little here, leave the puddle here while I work with my napkin here. Otherwise, see, imagine if I didn't have the masking in there, all that could have run all the way over the picture, right? So I'm going to keep working this way. Try to go always in the same direction with your strokes. See, I don't know what level you guys have. So I'm talking to you like you are kind of, let's say, experienced, but that you need a refreshing with your technique, okay? So I'm not being preachy. I'm just telling you how I do it and why I do it. Okay, so now I'm double checking that's not accumulating anywhere. If it's accumulating, I'm again going to grab some of this napkin and say, okay, first thing I'm going to clean this part so this doesn't go into the painting. Here looks like it's a little bit. See how it's not accumulating there? Perfect. Just a little bit. Maybe a little bit here. Okay. So now, see, I try not to dry my painting until it stops moving. Once it stops moving is when I use the hair dryer. Here, this, I need to make sure I clean this up so it doesn't go back into the paper. Okay, let's get a little bit more here. 2 seconds. So as you can see, I take my time. There we go. Okay, so that is going to be pretty smooth and nice wash. And you see that I didn't even get it wet with clean water. I work fast, and I was minding where the paint was going at all times. Took my time. This is not something you can rush. Okay, so now I can actually dry it. And you're gonna see me drying it with 2 hair dryers. Why? Because my concern is if I do with one, here's time to dry already. So I'm getting a little crazy and spastic here, going bum, 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 bum. So I use 2, so I have 1 on each side, and it's much easier for me to keep an eye on both sides. The only thing though is even though you're gonna look like I'm on top of it, I'm actually at least a hand up in the air minimum, and I continuously move my hair dryers to make sure it's airflow. I don't want this to get dry by the heat. I want it to be dry by airflow, okay? And I will not dry all the way completely. I will just dry enough for it to stop moving. Now I'm getting concerned because here it's starting to dry and it's still very wet and it has a buckle. If I don't dry it soon, this is gonna become a tunnel, okay? So I have to stop talking and dry it now. Oops. So why did I show you this technique? It's because this. Think about it. In order for me to do this, to be confident enough to attempt to do this, I need to be able to do this. Know how to have a perfectly clean and even wash. If I don't know how to do this, I can't do this. Okay, so that's one of the reasons. So it's good. Doing backgrounds is a great practice to learn to control your washes. Okay, so this is still bumpy, lumpy. You can tell it's lumpy there. So I will not touch this. I mean, I could now spend another 4, 5, 10 minutes drying it, and then I could just actually make more layers and do it to the end. But I don't want to bore you with just the background layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry a little bit more here, and then I'm going to peel this off, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how I do, for example, the cloth, okay? And the first layers of this project here. Okay, so I need to dry it first. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna need this anymore. That goes away. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you this. What is this? This is palette paper. Why do I use palette paper instead of using regular paper? It's because it repels any paint. And also it's because I can see through also the drawing underneath when I cut the shapes. You can also use, the plastic sleeves, for this kind of things. Plastic sleeve like this, you can open it, so cut it, open it, and use that instead too. It's also a cheap alternative to it. But it really helps to avoid problems. Okay, before I go there, this is what I'm going to show you. See this cloth here? that one. That's what I want to show you how I do it. And I'm going to explain to you how why I use different colors. Let's say it looks like these are same colors, blues and browns, they're together. So how come I use different colors? I'm going to explain to you. When I do skies and when I do cloths, I use different colors than the ones I use for the background. For the background, I want them to be staining. I want them to be permanent. I don't want to lift highlights. I want them to stay put, right? So, but what happens is, yeah, I can have a most beautiful gray with those two colors. I'm looking for something that I was curious. This is what I was going to show you. This gray blue is made with cobalt blue and burnt sienna, or with the burnt quinacridone burnt orange. You get this beautiful blue gray, gorgeous. You get, if you want, you can get the same with the quinacridone rose and the phthalo green. Difference is, this might granulate, this will not granulate. So it depends what you want to use it for, you use one or the other. So this one, look how pristine and gorgeous it is. I can add more pink in one side. So this for backgrounds is just gorgeous. This one, when I do clouds, when I do snow scenes, I use this other one. Why? When I do my clouds. Why do I do that? Because this is easy to lift. If I want to lift highlights, remove extra color, this is easy to do. I could not do it with this one. So that big here, there's one here too, for example. All these pleats, all these things, if I had used the quinacridones and the phthalos, it would have been impossible to remove any mistakes or any new highlights, because you never copy exactly what you see in your photo. I personally change 1,000 things. So if I want to create a wider highlight here that was not in the original photo, if I use the cobalt blue with the burnt sienna, I'll be able to lift it up. But if I do the quinacridones, it's not going to happen. So that's why I recommend those two different combinations for same colors, but it's actually, completely different pigments. Okay, so actually, while that one dries, we can work on this. Now, sorry, I have so many things here on the table because I want to show you so many examples. But see, I'm very organized. There we go. Now, blues, the other reason here I have this here is no blues are adequate for these things. That's why I'm recommending these two particular mixes, right? If I use the cobalt teal, for example, it granulates, is impossible to remove, is not going to be a good combination. That's only good. I only use it when I do little hints of color in my ceramics. That's when you might see a little hint of that teal color in my ceramics. That's the only time I will use that color. Because to paint, trust me, to try to paint an object with this color is impossible because it granulates. And if you're a person that really likes granulation, yes, perfect. But you're trying to paint the still lifes, it's only for accents. It's not for painting a subject. The turquoise, same thing. Phthalo blue turquoise. Here we go. Think about it. It will look gorgeous here, but do not attempt to start the painting with that color. That will be just for accents at the very end. Little accent, a little wash, adding a little extra color here and there. Or if you have a very a subject like this that needs that color, then you add that color there. But it will not be my colors of choice for doing the main washes. For my main washes, it will be the cobalt blue, definitely. I will not use the ultramarine, for the main washes either, because it granulates more than the cobalt blue. I will use the ultramarine though to do the design on this. Okay, those, yes, and I will mix the ultramarine blue with either Payne's gray or with a neutral gray to make the darkest dark blue. Okay, but I will not use the ultramarine blue for the shapes because it will granulate. So do I use indigo, moon glow, or any of those colors? I really don't. I bought them to test them, and I know that some people use them profusely. And makes beautiful effects. The moon glow, beautiful effects. But for where I paint, they are not appropriate. So cobalt blue is my choice. Ultramarine is good for details. And I do have a tip for you. I found that the I received some awards from M-Gram company. So I have several tubes, and they gave me like 12 different paints, colors. And I love the ultramarine blue. It's like, oh my God, it's so rich. They're made with honey, like Sennelier. And oh my God, the richness. The only thing is that I put it on my palette, and every time my finger passes by, because it doesn't dry, it always ends up in my fingers. Like, it really gets me a little upset, but it's beautiful, beautiful, intense colors, I must say. M-Gram, I can pronounce the name. Very, very nice. Do I use Payne's gray often? No. For my clouds? No. I find it to be a dead color. I rather use, like I said, the cobalt blue with the burnt sienna. Another tip. For years and years, when I didn't have any money in the 1990s, I bought Da Vinci because somebody recommended. It was a book called The Wilcox Guide to Watercolor Paints. And he was recommending Da Vinci. He had in that book, he analyzed, let's say, the best 12 brands of watercolors. And he was giving them rating for spreading, rating for light fastness, rating for everything. And among others, it was always Da Vinci. And every color he rated, it was just sensational. Later, I found out that he was actually in cahoots with Da Vinci. But besides the point, he really has good ratings. So for years and years, I used the burnt sienna. And one time I ordered, by mistake or by design, they sent me the burnt sienna deep. Burnt sienna deep 205-1. It's a beautiful, rich color that it can be left. So when I mix it with my cobalt blue, it gives me a beautiful, beautiful combination. Beautiful combination. But I can actually lift a little if I need to. If I make a little mistake, it's still a little liftable. So it works beautifully for my cloths. Okay. I'm going to show you how I can actually lift. Not this one, because that's a good one. Here, for example. I'm going to show you. See, it depends how much you put. You end up more brownish or more loose. Usually what I do, okay, that's another important tip here. When, okay, the burnt sienna deep, like I say, is a little reddish, which means when you mix it with your cobalt blue, it's going to neutralize it and it's going to be pretty good. What happens is when you use, let's say, if you use, I call it, not Daniel Smith, Winsor Newton, and also Daniel Smith, when you use other burnt siennas from other brands, they have too much yellow on them. So when you mix them with the cobalt blue, you get like a greenish kind of gray. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to solve, no problem. Just add a little bit of the permanent rose or the quinacridone rose to it, a tiny bit, and that solves the problem. Then you have a perfectly neutral, beautiful, luminous gray. And that's what I usually do with my clouds in the skies too. If I put a tiny bit, the curious thing is that combination of cobalt blue and the burnt sienna deep in a tiny bed of the queen rose makes them kind of separate slightly and you get kind of like a little glow in places. I love that. Absolutely love it. Let me see. Let me show you this color. So what happens with this brown though? Is it as staining as the what do you call it? Like a Daniel Smith burnt sienna? No, like I said, it left a little easier. So will I use it as an underlayer for something? Yeah, I will use it. But if I'm gonna paint many layers on top, let's say with my copper pots, I will use this one only for the last layers because otherwise it might move, right? So for my underlayers, let's say on copper pots, I would use, see the color is there, I mean, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but I use it only for the third layer, let's say. For my first layers, I would use gold quinacridone, burnt orange quinacridone, and after, see, here, these things. And then as a last layer, I will use the burnt siennas of any kind, you know, any brand. Why? Because they move more. They don't sink as much as the quinacridones. But because they are more opaque, you're able to get to a darker value faster. But first layers, quinacridones, let them sit, they will glow through the paper. It's just beautiful. Okay, so focusing now. Any questions, anybody? Because I'm not looking at the chat thing or anything. Anybody?
No, the details are terrific. You're just giving all kinds of little, wonderful little details. I think it's great.
Thank you. As long as nobody falls asleep. That happened to me once at the Northeast Watercolor Society about 4 or 5 years ago, before the pandemic. I was supposed to give a demo, and it was like almost 200 people there. It was wonderful in person. And the only person that I saw nodding off was my best friend. It's like, I saw his head going. I said, "Are you kidding me?" It was a lot of fun. It was fun. So I actually say, "Somebody's sleeping," and everybody turn around. So you woke up people when you start, you know, saying that, you wake up people, which is good. Okay, so now, see how here I also use that same combination. Here I have the cobalt blue, the names, my God, my brain. I was telling you before, my memory is going, my brain. And the cobalt blue, I have the names here because otherwise I get confused. The quinacridone gold, or the quinacridone burnt orange, and the pink. And I'm gonna paint it for you. You're gonna see how wild I go with those colors. And they even out beautifully. And then still, even though they are mostly quinacridones, the good thing about mixing the cobalt blue with those quinacridones is that it makes the quinacridones less staining sometimes. So it helps to, let's say if I want to make a lighter section here, I'll be able to actually lift that a little bit because of the cobalt is helping a little bit. Also, what happens is by mixing the quinacridones with the cobalts or with the burnt siennas, it makes them more transparent too. So they look all more transparent. So they benefit from each other. The quinacridones from the more opaque paints, they benefit in many different ways. Okay, so let's do this one. It's colored. So let's do this one. Okay, so I don't need these guys anymore. I'm gonna put them aside. How are we doing with time? 5:16, okay. Good, good, good. Now, what kind of brush would I use for this? Definitely, I need again one of these guys. Why? Because I don't want to think about it. I already have one layer, even though it's a staining color, it's probably stained there pretty good. It's gonna be hard to remove. For that, I need to use these scrubbers. But still, I don't want to disturb it too much. So I'm still going with my natural hair brushes, okay? This I don't think I rinse.
Do you use synthetic brushes at all?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I actually do recommend a few. I don't know if you have ever had, well, okay. So the funny thing is, I don't endorse anybody, but I do like the brushes by from Spain, Skoda. I love them. And that's what I've been using because they also gave me 2 sets of them. But I love the Skoda Versatile. It is amazing. It's a mix of fibers that mimics natural hair. Oh, fantastic. Those are for large washes. I can actually paint almost everything with this brush, and this is size 10.
We
But for
actually
details,
have a couple of questions when you're done
yes.
showing your brushes.
Oh no, interrupt me, it's fine. Tell me.
What kind of tape is that? And I'm not sure
Yeah, I will
which tape
show
we're
you.
talking about. What
Okay,
texture do you use?
yeah, so then let me finish then with the brushes.
Okay.
So Versatile, I love that brush. It's just fantastic in any size. You know, that's the trouble one. I mean, fantastic. I could paint a whole painting with this. I don't even need the flats sometimes. They're so good, even though they are synthetic, but high end. These are the everyday, I call them the everyday for little details, to paint the details here. Those are also Skoda, and they are the Perla synthetic. Perla. They're fine, they're wonderful. But then, for example, I've also been painting for years and years with Cheap Joe's White Knight. I mean, this is just great synthetic. And I've been painting with this one, I don't know, so I receive awards, sometimes materials awards, and I can't remember who gave me what. But this one, I think I bought it. It's a Princeton Neptune. Ah, it's a joy for for those big cups I paint, for the large ones. Oh, it's just because you have the nice tip to go around instead of having a flat one. I cannot go around those edges so well with a flat. This is just, oh, wonderful. And I love the way it holds. I have another one that I was given in Spain, but it's too short. I don't like, I guess to paint like this, I don't like, I'm gonna have to give it away. I love, it's the same kind of hair, fantastic, but it's the shape I don't like. It's too chubby here and too slippery. And that is from Raphael, and I don't care about it. It's a Raphael brush. Like I say, the hair is fantastic, but the handle, I'm gonna have to put a fake one on it or something so it grips better. This one is better. So this I recommend big time, the Princeton Neptune size 8. And then the other day from Cheap Joe's, they also gave me a whole bunch of things. And this is a very nice brush too, synthetic. And it's American Journey. But wait, this one. I tested it. I loved it. It's called the Dream Catcher by Cheap Joe's. And it's a size 10 and it's made in Spain. And I have a theory. I believe it was made by Skoda, because if you look, the handles are almost identical and it's from Spain. So I guess it's Skoda made them for them or something. I don't know. But it's Cheap Joe's Dream Catcher. Love, even though it's synthetic. Wow, it has power. Very, very nice. Anyway, done with the brushes.
Done with the brushes. 3 questions.
Yes.
What type of tape? What texture paper? And how do you lift?
Okay, very good. Now, you know, most people have the blue tape, the green tape, the 3M tape. Years ago, because I like to be tidy, I didn't like all the mess that was over the white tape. I said, let me try black tape because it seems like, you know, more clean and more neat. Well, I bought this one by chance, and it's called, I'll send you guys later the thing. It's called Masking Pro Premium pH Neutral, but doesn't matter. I can tell you that and you won't find it. I will have to give you the link on Amazon, because if you just put in Amazon black tape pro, they're gonna give you a different one. It's not gonna be. But this one is, as you can see, it's slightly shiny, but it still has a tooth to it. It's not completely slippery. But what happens is it's easy to put down. So it's sticky, pretty sticky, but I can leave it on the paper for months and it with no, it doesn't rip the paper, it does not leave any residual. Fantastic. And I think it's like $10 or whatever a roll. But I mean, I keep reordering and my students keep reordering because it's the best I found so far. For example, I order another one that looks about the same, right? A cheaper one, 3 in a pack. And this one is as sticky gets. Would I put this one here? No, I only use it for the outline because for paintings, I know I'm going to use, and paint in 2 weeks and that's it. I don't trust it. Is that I have to be careful when I peel off so it doesn't rip, okay? So not all tips are created equal. This is called sticks. It's just a cheap one. In the past, I used the 3M, the real one, and it came already damaged from the store. So it was already being exposed to heat. And you know how when you try to peel it, it keeps breaking in pieces and you cannot get a full strip. Once you get that kind of tape, if you cannot peel off a whole strip without breaking, don't use it. Because that means it's already degrading and it's probably going to leave all that disgusting sticky residue, which I have in some paintings from Spain, because they put some sticky thing on them. The painting, I can't believe people can do that in a professional. It was a gallery in Spain for my exhibit. They put double-side tape all around the perimeter of my painting to stick it to the mat board. So when I retrieved the paintings that they didn't sell, that I wanted to bring with me, I could not remove, the glue still on the very edge of all my painting. And the same happens with this kind of thing. So now, this one I bought by chance of experimenting. This doesn't seem to be very tacky. You see, it doesn't have even a name inside. You buy it in Amazon, it's like a generic, and sometimes generics work well. This one is the kind that, let's say, Lorraine Watry. I don't know if you know Lorraine. She's adorable. She's a great teacher, Lorraine Watry. She does the masking and cutting with the knife thing. Listen, she's very brave. I can't do it. But she uses this kind of tape, more or less, and so she can see the drawing, underneath. Look at this. See, it's transparent. So you can see, so you can cut easily. But this one doesn't seem to be too tacky. So I tested it. And as soon as I put the second wash over it, it started wrinkling. So the paint went underneath. So that's why I like this particular one, because when I put it in here and I press down, nothing goes underneath. But not only that, can you see how shiny it is in some spots? I personally go with the masking fluid and seal each one of the overlapping edges of each piece of tape has an overlapping edge. So I seal with the masking fluid each one of those to make sure that no paint goes underneath. And you saw that I went over, you don't see any wrinkles on the tape. I can go 3 times, 10 times, and this tape does not wrinkle with the water. I also tested the green tape, the frog tape, and the blue tape, and they work well too, but actually this worked better. It did work better. So it's my own experience. Other people find the blue tape okay. So anyway, any more questions? I see that 4 things there.
Use hot or cold press paper?
I use always cold press. I have tried in the past to use hot press, and it's not for my style. I like the washes I can achieve with the cold press much better.
And then the last one is how do you lift?
How do I what?
Lift.
Lift. Okay, I'm gonna show you in a minute. Okay, I have one more trick to tell you about the paper. I have tested many papers also, and I always end up going back to arches, even though they have failed me many times because they had defective batches, and it's been a long story. But anyway, I still, the hate-love relationship with arches, 140 cold press natural color. In my experience, it has happened to me actually in 3 different occasions, 3 different papers on the extra white. I noticed that they absorb the paint faster, much harder to lift. You can barely lift any paint once you put it on the extra white. In my experience, 3 different papers. It was Fabriano extra white something, another Fabriano of different kind extra white, and also it was Lana Aquarelle or something. And it was this one, the Artist. I didn't like the way the extra white handles the paint. I had big trouble with 2 of my very important paintings because it was not letting me lift. It was impossible unless I really scrubbed like crazy, and I don't like that. So that's my experience with extra white. The other thing is, what side of the paper do you use? You get all kind of opinions in that. I personally use the bumpy side, meaning I use the tooth side, the one that has the most grain, where it reads reverse. But if you have been in the past or now used the blocks, the ones that you have to run the knife to lift the pages, they all have the toothy part up and the not toothy part on the bottom. So it's very interesting because that's how I started painting on the toothy side, because I first started with the blocks. I said, oh, that must be the right side. So I started painting. When I started buying sheets, I started painting on the toothy side. And to me, I tested many, many times. The paint spreads better, it spreads longer, and doesn't create so many watermarks, meaning you don't end up with that outline at the end of your shape. I find that the other side, the one that has less tooth, is perfect when you try to paint like hot press, meaning if you want to have overlapping shapes with watermarks, the other side works best because the color sinks faster, so it seems to dry faster. So you get those beautiful little watermarks, like Ted Nuttall, with his paints of portraits of, colored shapes. So in my experience, the bumpy side really gives you more the chance of spreading and creating beautiful washes, like when you have something that has to be very delicate, that runs better, my opinion. Okay, what was the other question? Sorry, you said something. What was the question? The last one.
About
That
lifting.
was 3.
Lift.
The what?
How do you lift?
Oh, lift. Okay, so let's do that. Let's say this one I want to lift. Okay, here we go again. We have different levels of stiffness with your brushes. This is a cheap Joe's, like for like an ugly brush or whatever. And you have also brushes that you can use. Let's see what we have here. Now, you're gonna be surprised for a couple of my choices. Okay, now, first thing, what is this? Well, this is how I apply my masking fluid if I don't use the brush. This is called the dipstick, and this has a funny name. And this is the Incredible Nib. They're both like some kind of fiber that allows the masking fluid to drip very slowly and nicely, right? But I also use this for erasing or lifting tiny little dots. I try to be a purist, so I don't use usually white paint unless I have no choice, but it's very rare. So this fiber, when you leave the masking fluid on them to dry and you don't peel it off, it creates like a slightly gummy tip. So it's not very harsh. So that little gummy tip comes very handy when I want to have, let's say, oh, I forgot this, I need to erase, there was a little hole there. So I can go, but first I put the water, wait a few seconds. or let's say it's a line, a little tiny area where I really need to remove without distressing anything around. Okay, so now let's say one. Okay, there you go. Got a little dot right there. Ta-ta.
Do you scrape? Do you ever scrape with a blade?
No, it scares the heck out of me. But let me
Okay.
put this. Yeah, is I am a chicken, and anything with the blade just that's the trick for me. Let me put this here so we can lift this up in the air. Okay, that way you guys get to see better. So let's say for little things, I would use that one. Now, the big guns. These are oil brushes. So if I have, I purposely, I like that. Let's say glass has these hard edges. Flowers have hard edges too, but then cloth doesn't have to have hard edges. So sometimes I purposely distress the paper to make it a little more blurry, so it's not pristine and clean cut lines. So if I want to lift a shape here, I have many options. I can buy things from the dollar store, you know, those cheap places, Family Dollar, whatever, and trim them to any size I want. They have different, this one is a little softer, this one is harsher, this one is bigger, and also it's still soft enough, but rough enough. So I modify brushes that I buy. Now this was Chris Breslin's. Care Family give away some of it. Okay, so this one was also from dollar store, and I trim to make it shorter and more, see, it has a nice flat edge there. This is my number one tool. This is called the Princeton Select Filbert Grainer.
Again, please tell me the name again.
Yeah, it's the Princeton Select Filbert Grainer, like grainer. And what happens, it had like a little hairs, so I had the main body, and then a few little scraggly hairs sticking up, I guess to do grass or something like that. So I trimmed those off, and I have a very thin profile now left. Let me see where you can see it there. Very thin profile, okay? So that one, when I want to do some lines, that is perfect because it gives me just exactly what I want. Do I use the, what I call these things, the sponge thing? Only when I have made a big boo-boo in a large painting. Like I did make one time something on a cloth, and I said, it didn't look good. After weeks looking at it, it was bugging me. So I did use this to get rid of that. But the trick of using this when you have made a mistake, or let's say you have dropped some permanent rows in here, is to do it in separate layers, meaning you are going to get it wet, rinse it, and do a little bit more, dry it completely, come back again wet. If you try to do it while it's wet and you keep rubbing while it's still wet and wet, you're going to distress the paper too much and it's going to show. You want to do it in stages, and you won't even know that you distressed that with this thing. You have to be very patient. This one, let's say that I want to do here one of this, simple. This one is harsh enough. It's harshy. So let's say I will just go. Put first the water, not to scrub until you have that already soaking in. Let me see. It's already there. Look, see how easy to lift it is with this? Because it's harsh. If I try to do it with a regular brush, it will not even show. But see, because I am not, okay, I'm gonna do it with a color brush and you're gonna see what I mean. 1 second, piece of paper. I'm distressing not just one line, I'm distressing, that's what I was looking for. The trick is to distress more than just the line. You're gonna distress all this. So by tapping, you're distressing that section in an uneven manner. So you don't have a hard line there. So whenever I left color, that's what I do. Let's say that I need to erase something here. I will not just simply, let's say it needs to be bigger. Let's say that I need to erase this somehow. I will not just simply go. I will go basically in concentric circles, pressing less and less and less. So I'll press harder here, but I will press less and less and less. So I get the highlight, for example, in here. If I need to do that, I will do that. I will press harder in the area that needs to be white, but I will press less and less as I go away. So you don't have a perfectly distressed section in the middle that shows that you've been actually rubbing in there. By distressing all the area around it a little bit, that doesn't show us different from the rest of the paper. Okay, what else? What else? Okay, so let's see what else we can do here. For example, and sometimes in some of my paintings, I told you that I changed my mind and I said, oh, I wish I put the marbles in that one. This painting has two versions. One has marbles inside. That was the second version. And then I said, oh, to balance this, I need to have another marble here.
Yeah.
So in that case, I will use, let's see, this is like a surgeon tools here. Okay. Which one I will use? I don't want to distress too much. First, I'm going to figure out where I want to go. I want that marble to intersect the shadow, so it looks okay. I want it to be too close to the edge. So let's say my marble should be, I don't want it to be right to the edge here. So I want to go above the edge. So let's say my thing is going to be here. So now I know what it is, I'm going to erase the pencil lines. I don't want to rub over the pencil lines because they will, so you might erase it. They will show us ugly dark marks. So what I do is to use, I have even more brushes. Wait a second, where did you go? This. I have the cheap Joes in different sizes. Okay. I try everything under the sun. This is cheap Joe's scrubbers. I put these tapes so I can see them and identify them. That is the scrubber from Creative Mark. I don't like them as much because they're extremely harsh. I prefer the cheap Joe's. It's harsh, but it seems to damage less the paper. This is a very tiny one, as you can see. Sorry. So you have size 2, size 4. They come in a set, size 2, size 4, and 6, I believe. And they are very, very, very handy. I don't know where I put the other one. I thought I had it here. Anyway, so I will start. Yeah, that's the same one, right? Yes. So I will start with that one by getting wet the paper in that area, only in the area that I need to remove. I don't need to do the whole circle. It's just the area where I want to. Oh, that's why I can see I'm wearing my, I need to put my reading glasses on. You can see that. Okay, so I get it wet a little and I try first to remove as much as the color that is there already as possible. Okay, so I'm not scrubbing until all the color is off. It's been there for a long time. It was so probably not going to come out much. So I'm gonna insist a little bit more. But see, I'm patting. I'm not scrubbing. I'm just kind of trying to disperse the pigments in there. A little bit coming off, not much. So now it's time for the big guns. Now, I could add the design. I didn't even actually decide the design. I can use what is there as part of my design, so that way I don't have to worry about it showing. Okay, so we have a band that goes that way. So if we do that, we could have, let's say, some blue that goes that way, and that goes that way. So we could use that. So either you use it to your advantage, what you have already. The only place where I would like to erase more will be, let's say, this section here to make it completely white. But actually, see, I could actually use the blue. Okay. But anyway, so if I were to scrub it off, I would use it this way. In different stages, not all at once, because otherwise you're going to distress the paper too much. It's time to get there. In this case, I'm more interested on getting the outline light. In the center, we can actually do whatever color we want. But yes, this is how I use this. And let's say I want to get rid of a whole area and I want to make it lighter, I can use the bigger guns and use this one. Pat, pat, pat. And see how it looks natural because you use a big brush, so you don't have a very defined shape. No. Okay. Now, we have done 5. Okay, I just want to show you how I will do this layer with 3 different colors. Okay. How I would do this is, think about it. I want to have a soft edge. I see most of my students have a problem with keeping that edge soft. I always recommend that you put the water at least, let's say this is 2 fingers, right? Okay, at least 1 finger more of water of what you want to go. So if I let's get through it. So many things on my table, I have trouble finding things. Okay, go. There we go. Yeah, I guess it has a hole in it. It's not dropping the water. Okay. Cobalt blue. This is the quinacridone burnt orange. See. Okay, so now I want it to be kind of creamy because otherwise they're not going to have much power. But this is already quite dark, so I want to make sure I don't go too dark. Now I'm gonna have a little puddle of the pink. Okay, and now I assess what I have here. It's mostly on the blue range, but it has, I don't know if you can see, it's like a little glow on the top where the brown and the pink have kind of separated a little bit. That's why I want those 3 to tell you they're magical together. So this one I want to make it a little thicker. I'll show you in a second in a piece of paper what they look like. Here. Okay, so the blue is about this. Give me even more. Because we're gonna put water first. So it's gonna dilute. So it needs to be strong enough. This one is going to be this. This one is going to be, okay, so think about it. When they blend together, and then you get a little bit of the pink there, you can end up with a beautiful, beautiful color there. It depends how much brown you put or how much blue you put in there. Okay, so I got those. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I need room to move. I get claustrophobic when my table is too crowded. There we go. Okay, so brush. I'm gonna go fast, so I'm just going to use clean water, and I'm going to do what I just said. I want this to be here, so I want to go higher with the water. I think if I got this way, you'll be able to see it. the thing is, usually you wait until the very, very end to do those lifting color. I don't lift color until the very, very end. When I'm satisfied with my colors, that's when I do the lifting. Right now, on the areas where I try to lift color, they might look rough when I apply the color. Okay, so now this. Now, usually I start from top, go to back. If you start from here, what happens is you're gonna contaminate your brush with the colors. By the time you reach up here, you're gonna end up with a line of dirty water. So that's why you saw me, I started with the top first, and then after I have the top, then I can go to the bottom, okay? Now, I have that brush. Now let's use maybe a size, I think it's an 8, something like that. What color is the dominant color? Blue. So I'll start with the blue. This time, because I have already so many vertical lines, I'm going to go in a horizontal pattern first, and I'm going to start halfway down, because think about it, it's going to creep up, right? So I don't want it to creep up too much to go too far. So I'm starting this way. And now that I have that color there, see, I'm still tipping it downwards because I want it to creep naturally up little by little by little. Now, before it moves much more, I'm going to put a few dots of color. I'm not even rinsing my brush, because if I rinse it, I lose, I have too clean. The brown will be too brown. This way it's blending already with the blue, neutralizing more the blue, because I don't want it to be completely brown. Okay, so now I can get a little bit of the pink too. I know it looks very pinky at first, don't worry, it will blend. And I don't want to have a perfect shape, you know, like soldiers. I want them to be spread out, a couple of thick ones, maybe a thin one, maybe another couple of thick ones here, there. So very random, so they don't look perfectly placed. And I'm gonna tip it in the opposite direction, so they slide into each other a little. So they don't look like, oh, like perfect, beautiful. So they don't look like lines anymore. See, now already those little lines disappear. They are blending with each other. I can go now this direction too, to let it creep up a little bit. And if this bothers me, this pink here, I will rinse my brush, dry it. I'm drying it on my piece of paper there. I can dry, and I can just, with the very tip, I can just pick at it a little tiny bit to remove some of the excess pink in there. I'm talking about pink or brown, blue, whatever color. But see how beautiful it goes gently up. And it's not a watermark in here anywhere. But if it was a mark for whatever the reason, you will clean your brush, dry it, and you will kind of dab at the edge of that line, water line, to make sure it's not a perfect straight line. Okay. So that's how I do these things. Okay. So anybody has any other question?
Well, you covered it all.
See, right now I will dry it, because if you don't dry it now, it will keep creeping, and it will reach the line, water line, and you'll have a line. So that's when you have to do it. So 1 second, let me dry it, and I'll be with you in 2 seconds. So see, let me lift that for you to see. So it has these beautiful colors in there with no obvious line. When it dries, I could actually make a couple pleats, and here is where composition comes. You say, okay, I think I need one large one here, or maybe I need another one over here. So that's where you think about it. Don't rush it. You wait for it. You look at it for a few days, and then you say, yeah, maybe a little one here will look good, or maybe one here will look good. Okay. I see the colors are not as vivid on the image there as they are here. This is not finished, obviously, so it still needs more colors and shadows and whatnot. Let me see, where's the other one?
You have a couple of comments,
Yeah,
Lana.
okay.
The person who asked about how to lift says, thank you. Your explanation for lifting was so helpful. And another person says, precision at its finest.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you guys having me. I don't know if anything else you want to see. Is basically those same colors that I use here, I would use for those shadows in the flower. I use them here. If I want to go darker, I will use probably the ultramarine blue with the quinacridone burnt orange. I mean, I basically, if you look at my palette here, those are my colors. I have boxes of colors and I only use them very rarely. I always end up with the same one. Indanthrone blue is wonderful for a last layer when you want a dark blue background. Like I show you here with this thing here. Let's say that you have this and you want to end up with a blue finish, a velvety blue finish, indanthrone blue is your color. If you want to finish with a velvety reddish brown, is the perylene maroon, is the most amazing color. And it covers every mistake. That's the good thing about those two colors. If your background didn't come very good, it was like whatever missing, gave it some perylene maroon, and trust me, it will cover any defects, even though it looks transparent. Perylene violet also does have that power. I like it too. I started to use it recently, and very interesting. It gets the values darker quickly, and it's an interesting color. The other one, permanent brown. I just discovered that one recently. That's also Daniel Smith. Permanent brown. I just look at the beautiful colors. I did it this afternoon for you guys to see. I don't know where it went. It's here in the middle somewhere. But anyway, so it's a beautiful reddish brown, transparent brown. So it's a little darker than quinacridone burnt orange. It's more orangey, but it's, anyway, beautiful. And for my greens, for my trees or whatever, when I teach things like this to my students, I use this sap green by Daniel Smith. To me, it's the best sap green there is because it looks very natural out of the tube. You mix it with a little lemon yellow, wonderful. You mix it with gold quinacridone, wonderful. You mix it with a little cobalt blue, fantastic. Or with the indanthrone blue, you get a great dark sap green with a lot of power. So those are my colors. I mean, phthalo green and the pink for my backgrounds. That's about the colors I use.
Who makes your lemon?
I have a question
Yes.
that every artist is asked the same question. They always say, how long does it take you to do that? Your work is exquisite and very detailed, so it's not a quickie.
Yeah, no quickies. I'm actually a fast painter. It's just that I don't see very well, so I spend more time taking photos so I can see better. I can see the painting complete. So here, if I take a large painting, I can see that corner of that corner. I only see what's close to me. The glasses don't cover the whole painting.
Yeah.
I spend more time taking photos so I can see them on my screen, believe it or not. But no, I paint actually fast. It's just that they tell you not to say they took you only a few days. They tell you to say, oh, it took me many weeks. But they do take me many weeks because I actually, even though I plan carefully from the very beginning, like I say, suddenly ideas pop in my head to improve the painting and say, oh, I could add this to the, oh, I could put this here. Oh. So I don't go fast on purpose. So I have the room to change. or sometimes because I get stuck with the last corner. It's always the top right or the top left corner that just needs that extra change to make it perfect. So I take weeks. Sometimes I put a painting aside for several months before I come back to it.
What manufacturer is your lemon yellow?
Actually, I've been using the Daniel Smith. It's fine. You know, once I got used to the brand, I used to use so many different brands, but then I don't know. They say sometimes they don't mix well together, and I seen that with my students when I do in-person workshops, and they bring different brands. Let's say their pink is not my pink, but they use my brown. So their pink and brown don't react the same as my pink and brown. And sometimes they kind of dull each other, or so that's why I prefer to stay with one brand, and so I know how they react.
And when you speak about pink, you're really talking about quinacridone rose or
Yeah, sorry, it's just because it's too many words. Yeah, when I say brown, is usually the quinacridone. See, that's why I put this for your benefit, but I also put it for my benefit, so I can remember what it is. Quinacridone burnt orange is 3 words, for God's sake. Brown, pink, blue. It's much easier. So yeah, that's why I guess that's why I use always the same colors. That way people know, oh, Lana only uses that color. So there's no confusion. So anyway, so.
Well, you have provided an enormous quantity and quality of detail that I mean, I see from the comments, people are very appreciative. Thank you.
Very happy, very, very happy. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me. And if you guys have any questions that pop in your head later on, please address those questions to our hosts, and then they'll pass them on to me so I can respond to them. Okay.
Sure. Good.
The name of the
Yes.
tape, I'll send you the link of the tape, the black tape, and any other thing that you may have missed, I talked too fast or didn't pronounce correctly, just let me know and I will send you the information.
Thank
you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I'm going to stop the recording now.